Hey everyone, I just wanted to have a quick chat today about some of the literary and academic goals that I'm setting for summer 2025. Now that my master's semester is done and I don't technically start up on coursework until September, I still have a pretty big teaching load, but I have more time than I did while I was also studying, and so I'm really looking forward to doing all kinds of personal study and reading this summer. So first, I actually want to talk about my academic goal, which is related to my master's thesis that I need to have written by next August, so not this coming August, but the August after that, 2026. So I'm doing a master's in history, and in addition to coursework that requires writing a thesis. And so my goal for this summer is to nail down my thesis topic, compile a body of literature, start reading it, and hopefully develop a tentative thesis and outline for this paper. I also need to select and contact a potential supervisor once I've decided on my topic and research question. And then I also want to develop a research and writing plan and timeline to get me through the next year and a bit until this thesis is going to be complete. So I'm really struggling with that right now. I actually did spend a few hours this week looking into different topics and things for my thesis, and I just can't decide. There's just so many things that I'm interested in. I can't pick an area or a question because they're all so good. So I'm really interested in the history of classical education. I'm interested in female authors and female historians. I'm very interested in the Netherlands, stories and folk tales, book history and book transmission, book culture, print culture, the moral imagination, religion and the sacred temple of scholarship, libraries, coffee houses, home academies, book collections, all these kinds of things. And I have several lists here of potential more specific topics and research questions, and I just can't decide. And I'll probably need to look into at least a dozen of these before figuring out which one is most plausible, which one has a body of primary sources that I can access over the internet, that kind of thing. There's so many factors that go into actually choosing a topic and research question. So yeah, my goal is by September to have that figured out so that I have a plan. I don't want to go into the next year of classes with no plan for my thesis, or next summer I'm going to be extremely overwhelmed. So that's my first kind of academic goal for the summer. My second is to do a lot of professional development in the world of classical education. I'm a teacher at a classical school. I teach in the upper school. I teach history and literature. And so I'm always wanting to develop those skills. And so my goal is to complete 2 to 3 courses on Classical U, which is this classical sort of online university for Christian classical educators. One that I have my eye on is called Awakening the Moral Imagination with Fairy Tales and Stories by Dr. Vigen Goroyan. Another one is Myth Made Fact with Dr. Louis Marcos. And then for my third, I don't know, I haven't decided on that one yet. Probably something related to teaching history or the great books, or maybe something specific to medieval history, which I'll be teaching next year. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to doing that. I really miss sitting in a classroom and being lectured to. I love just listening and learning from people. I love being the student in the back just taking notes while somebody else is lecturing. And I don't get that in my master's degree, which is, independent research and writing and forum posts and that kind of stuff. And then in the classroom, I'm the lecturer, I'm not the listener. So I really enjoy being able to take courses as PD, as professional development, and just feel like that student again and like I'm learning and growing my own mind and skills. It's great. So that's my second goal. Lesson prep for my next year of teaching is also going to make up a big part of my summer. So I'm going to need to be reading ahead on a lot of the materials that I'll be teaching. I'll need to be prepping history notes, going through my history textbooks and developing lectures, all that kind of stuff, planning out my year, writing catechisms, coming up with assignments. I also am planning on finding some maps for my classroom and framing them, and maps that I can use in my ancient, medieval, and modern history classes. I want to get my hands on a number of those over the summer, frame them, have them all ready to go for the classroom. I've also been asked to collect furniture pieces and decor items for the school, for the new upper school wing that we're building that will be ready for next year. So I have a big budget for that. So I'm going to be doing a lot of antiquing and looking for cool pieces, for bookshelves, for desks, for just, anything that would suit the classical classrooms that we're trying to develop and cultivate. Creative writing. I'm currently working on what I call Project Verily. It's my current novel project. I'm at about 20,000 words. I would love to write another 50,000 by the end of the summer, but I feel like that is not very realistic. And if I did write another 50,000, I'm well on the way to completing the novel. I have no idea how long it's going to end up being, but generally the average novel is 70 to 100,000 words. I'd like to do more than 70. I think my last one was sitting around 70. I'd like to write a longer novel, but we'll see how that goes. 50,000 might be stretching it though for over the course of, May, June, July, August. Especially because I'll be still doing a lot of academic research and PD and lesson prep during that time and taking a number of trips. I don't know how much time I'll actually end up having to put towards my creative writing project, but I do want to be making progress on it week by week, whatever that ends up looking like, especially now that I'm joining an artist group, a writers group, and I'll need to give updates and have that accountability of, am I actually writing? Do I actually have a piece to share with the group during our regular meetings? That kind of thing. I think that'll be good motivation to keep steadily making progress at this project. I also want to do more kind of essay and reflective writing for my Substack. Last year or the year before, I was posting quite regularly on Substack, just kind of reflections, more like essay style pieces. I was just writing about ideas that I was thinking about related to reading and writing and classical education and great books. I haven't been doing much of that kind of writing recently just because a lot of the times I end up sharing those thoughts in video format, or I just can't find the time to sit down and do that style of writing and then get it uploaded and posted. It's just one more thing that I can't get to in the busyness of daily life, but I would like to make that more of a priority so that I am posting regularly. For those of you who do follow me on Substack and really enjoy having written pieces to consume, not just videos here on YouTube. Then in terms of my reading, I want to continue to work my way through the great books, the classics, share my thoughts on some of these books with you guys on YouTube. It's been really fun. I feel like I've read a lot of great books recently, and sitting down to take notes and write out my thoughts and prepare videos in which I share my experience with that book has been really, really awesome. I'm not sure if it's the most popular form of content where, for example, I just have one video and it's me talking about The Grapes of Wrath or comparing two classic novels that I read, but they're the most satisfying to make because I've read a great book and I've sat down and thought about it and synthesized my thoughts and the questions that I have about that book and shared it, and I feel more satisfied and more proud of that type of content than I do where I'm just saying, oh, these are the books I have, or just vaguely talking about the books that I've read without really doing them justice. So I hope to be able to make more videos like that are focusing in on specific books that I've read and that have impacted me. And I do want to make a lot of progress on my litlets. That's what I'm calling them. They're these little notebooks that I have organized by genre of literature. So I've got my nonfiction notebook, my mythology notebook, my novel, poetry, plays, fairy tale and folktale, and philosophy notebooks. The idea that my mythology notebook, for example, is a commonplace book about mythology where everything I read about mythology, every time I read a myth, I'm writing that stuff down in this notebook, but I'm also compiling lists of myths and categorizing them just because that's really, really helpful for me to categorize things and to have a historical timeline as well, to study the history of myth, to timeline it out, to trace the history of myth, and then to look at different cultures or civilizations and study their myths in their context. I really enjoy reading that way and studying literature that way. So that's kind of the point of these books, is to be a place where I can just organize everything, organize my thoughts, have my lists, have my timelines, to just make sense of all the things in my brain, because otherwise, I just find it difficult to kind of organize my thoughts and my knowledge in my own mind. So that's what these are for. And I do want to make steady progress on these in terms of defining each of these genres, looking at the history of these genres, their development over time, compiling lists of all the best books that fit into these genres so that I can make my way through those lists of books as my life goes on. Over the next who knows how many years I have left on this earth, I want to be reading great books. And so to have those lists going on in here, I think will be very helpful in guiding my reading. So I don't have a number of books that I want to read over the summer. I'm trying not to think numerically about my reading. I keep track of all the books that I read, so I know how many I read by the end of the year kind of thing, or in a month. Actually, not even in a month. I'm not that organized. I just have a year-long list and I just add. And that's helpful to know, but it's also really not a big deal. I mean, I'm satisfied if I am reading every day and I'm reading great books that are inspiring me me and teaching me and developing my thinking and my understanding. That's what I'm looking for, not a specific number of books. Because reading is not a competition. It's not about, did I read more books than that person? Did I read better books than that person? It's about going on your own journey, just following your curiosity and your wonder, and sitting with and enjoying the books that really speak to you. I have been thinking a lot about my literary life and what it means to have a literary life. I've been listening to the Literary Life podcast, where that's a big part of how they conceive of their intellectual lives, their reading lives. What does it mean to have a literary life? So hopefully I'll talk about that more in an upcoming video, how to develop a literary life, enter the literary life, and how to live that out year by year. Things change, life happens, it's not always going to look the same. But if you truly have that love of literature and of reading and of great books and great ideas, then you can have a literary life, even though it may have different seasons and it may look differently at different times in your life. But enough on that for now. In terms of what I want to read over the summer, I'm just going to share some of the titles that I put on my birthday wish list here that I'm hoping to receive. And if I don't, I'll buy them myself probably. I've got The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser. I've been dying to read The Fairy Queen because I've been on a real fairy tale kick recently, getting into George MacDonald and Lewis and Tolkien and all their thoughts on fairy tales and mythology and all those things. So I really want to read Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen, which was a huge influence on C.S. Lewis especially. I think he was the foremost Edmund Spenser scholar during his life, so that's fantastic. Dominion by Tom Holland, How the Christian Revolution Remade the World. That's a history book I've been meaning to read. The new book by Russ Ramsey, Van Gogh Has a Broken Heart, What Art Teaches Us About the Wonder and Struggle of Being Alive. I'm so pumped for that one. I want to read Summer by Edith Wharton. I'd like to read more George MacDonald, but I'm not even sure where to start. I read Fantastes this year, I read it last year, and I'm obsessed with it. I adore Fantastes, and I don't see how I could like any of George MacDonald's works more than I already like Fantastes, but who knows? I'm not entirely sure where else to go with him though, so that's something I'll need to look into. I should reread the Silmarillion and then some of the Unfinished Tales and the other Middle-earth lore and history books by Tolkien. Millennium by Tom Holland, which is a history of the Middle Ages. I want to read the Orestia, Agamemnon, the Libation Bearers, and the Eumenides, plays by Aeschylus. I would like to read the 3 Theban plays again as well, Antigone, Oedipus the King, and Oedipus at Colonus. Also Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus. I've been reading a lot of classic works this year, but they've mostly been the epics and history books. I haven't read a ton of drama or plays. I read The Bacchae and The Clouds, but that's about it for Greek plays, Greek tragedies. I'd love to read some more of those. Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, The Enchanted April by Elizabeth van Arnhem. Tending the Heart of Virtue, How Classic Stories Awaken a Child's Moral Imagination by Dr. Vegan Garoyan. I love to read The Letters of Flannery O'Connor. I haven't read any Flannery O'Connor, but I've been hearing a lot about her recently, and I know I'm very behind, and I should have read her by now, but I haven't. I think I'm going to start with her short story, which is The Enduring Chill, which I actually have right here. I printed out a copy. In Defense of Sanity, The Best Essays of G.K. Chesterton. I want to get my hands on a copy of those. Elizabeth Gaskell, Sylvia's Lovers. Elizabeth Gaskell, apparently, I honestly don't know much about her, and I haven't read any of her books before, but she's sort of like an underrated Victorian author, I guess. And then finally, I have on this list How the Irish Saved Civilization by Thomas Cahill. That's my list, my birthday registry, and then I've got a whole TBR list in my spreadsheet document as well that I'll need to go through again, but... Hey guys, just popping on to say that in my last video, several of you said that I should post my book wish list, an Amazon book wish list, in the description box of my video because some of you are interested in sending me books, which was really thoughtful and kind and lovely of you to say, and I have deliberated about it for a little bit because my first reaction was, oh, no way, I could never do that because, yeah, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that I think that I'm entitled to those sorts of gifts from you guys. But at the same time, if some of you are genuinely interested in supporting me that way, and you feel so inclined to do so, then I think I'm open to that, and I would really, really appreciate that because, yeah, I do put a lot into making videos about books, and yet book collecting, book buying is an expensive hobby because books aren't cheap and I can't always be buying myself new books. So yeah, any help that I can get in that area is greatly appreciated and kind of helps support and run and further this channel and its mission. So I think I'm going to post the link to that list in the description box. And again, You do not have to even look at it. You don't have to send me anything. But if you choose to do so, I would really, really appreciate it. And I'm so grateful for you. Yeah, I just think that's really lovely and kind. And I really, really appreciate that support. I think I figured out the Amazon thing where my address is anonymous. For privacy reasons, I don't want my home address out there. If for some reason you can see it, please do let me know so I can get rid of that, take that link down quickly. Thank you. Oh, I would also love to read more Ellen Montgomery, but I read most of her books last year. I think there's only one or two that I haven't read yet. But if I get my hands on those, I will definitely be giving those a read as well. They're perfect for spring and summer. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now, but of course, I don't really read as planned. I kind of just go where the wind takes me or where my curiosity leads me. Go by my gut. If I feel like reading something, I read it, and if I don't, I don't, kind of thing. So we'll see what I actually end up reading over the summer. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, one of my New Year's resolutions at the beginning of this year was to learn Latin and to start studying Latin, and not just here and there, but quite intensively and intentionally. And I just have not been able to do that so far in 2025. I think I've sat down with it a few times, but it hasn't been consistent, and I can't find the time to study a language seriously in my life right now. And so I've decided that once I've finished my master's degree next year, that's when, since I won't be going back to school formally, that's when I'll figure out a plan of action in terms of teaching myself Latin or taking an online course. There are many ways to learn a language online independently on your own, and so I'm going to be looking into that, coming up with a game plan for how I'm going to learn Latin next year, and just put that goal on pause for now, because I can only push myself so far, and I want to enjoy my life and not have learning be a burden. And so right now, in terms of my teaching, my studying, my reading, my writing, and my talking about things here on YouTube, I'm maxed out in terms of how much I can put on my plate and also still have a life and still be mentally stable and still prioritize relationships and still get outside and get fresh air and all those things. Those are my literary and academic goals for the summer season. Let me know if you guys have any tips or advice or ideas for me related to any of these things. Let me know what your reading goals are, your writing goals, your personal study goals, just whatever you've got going on this summer. Do let me know. Oh, one final thing I wanted to mention, and this is not necessarily a literary or academic goal, but do have some really exciting trips planned for the summer. My husband and I are going to Scotland and England. We're going to spend a bunch of time in Edinburgh and visit the university. I'm a student there, so I can tap my student card and get in and check out the campus and all that. And then we're doing a Highland tour. We're going to the Isle of Skye. We're going down to Oxford and the Cotswolds. So I'm really looking forward to that. As soon as the school year is done at the end of June, we will be heading overseas for several weeks. And then basically as soon as we get back, I'm going to a classical educators conference in the States, the same one that I went to last year, which was fantastic, and I learned so much about being an upper school history and literature teacher there. So that's another thing I'll be doing this summer. We're also traveling to BC on the other side of Canada for a friend's wedding, and who knows what other kinds of small trips and getaways will fit into there. And so I'm looking forward to learning a lot on those trips, and also just reading and enjoying some leisure time and some time with my husband. Yeah, thank you again so much for being here, for your ongoing support of my channel. Please do like this video, comment, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you again very soon in the next one.